One Piece chapter 1151 is here, and we are about to go into war. I mean, we're already there, but it's about to be amped up a lot. So the chapter starts off with the aftermath of Dory and Broggy first being turned, and now their dialogue as they've changed into these monstrous, evil creatures, saying, "Yes, that's right. The warrior we once admired has grown old and feeble, so it's time to force him into retirement. And then we will be the kings of Elbaf. There is no need for the god of Elbaf anymore. Bring about the age of war. We'll build an era destined by the ruthless and mighty." So this is pretty interesting to me because we know that they've obviously been taken over by Emu. And this doesn't seem, at least as far as I can tell, doesn't seem to be just the evil side of what is already their inclinations. Like it doesn't seem to be their natural inclinations taken to its farthest extreme so that it appears to be evil, or even just bent a little bit to be evil, because they didn't have any desire to rule. Now, granted, they were the captains, but they also forsook their captain status to go fight on an island for 100 years because of a small dispute that they had forgotten about. So having power and dictatorship doesn't seem to be their highest priority. I haven't seen any animosity or bitterness or even disregard towards you all up to this point. What else did they say? They don't seem to have, I haven't seen any inclination of thinking that those that are old should be dismissed or passed, taken out of commission. In fact, there seems to be a lot of reverence within this culture towards those that are older. Those that are far up in age seem to be highly revered in Elbaf, and Dory and Broggy, up to this point, have had a lot of care, and they take their identity in the culture and beliefs of Elbaf, the pride of Elbaf. They take pride in. They are one with their culture in that way, or at least the culture that they had known before they left. So to try to disrupt the culture and try to disrupt the leadership doesn't seem like a natural inclination of theirs. And they said that they're going to bring about an age of war ruled by the ruthless and the mighty. Now, this is probably the most closely what old Elbaf looked like. As far as I can understand, it seems like the reason Elbaf has been untouched and has been able to be its own independent island, not really tied into or subjugated by anyone, is because of, well, they're a warrior people. They're willing to defend if anyone were to try to infiltrate. However, that has recently been snuffed, or I should say altered, changed. Their culture has changed. So that's the one that looks the most like what once was, but it also more importantly, bringing about an age of war is, of course, what has been prophesied and what they're looking towards, what the celestial dragons are looking towards the giants to be, because they said it has been foretold that those that have the giants on their side are going to be the winners, which is why they're trying to get the giants on their side. So pretty much all of this together seems quite clear to me that this is Emu putting ideals and words into their mouth. This isn't them to their most evil inclinations. This is just Emu turning them evil in his specific way, the way that he would choose. And it is interesting that he's targeting Ural, not to turn him, not to Othello him, not to put two dark sides on either side of him and flip him, but to kill him. And in that, we must have found our weakness of this. There has to be some sort of limit, and that's gotta be it. Ural must have a strong enough will or something about him that Emu doesn't think he could change, which is why he's chosen death instead of to play the game. He's turning the pieces against him just to knock him off the board, which we'll build on in a minute. But first, I want to mention that one of my patrons, as we were in our stream for this chapter, one of my patrons mentioned that with Oda actually showing the pieces of the board as he's explaining how this is working and showing the light and the dark, and that either side in Othello could flip. Well, I mean, Oda doesn't really show that, but the rules of the game are that either side of the pieces could flip the opponent, which means that Oda is clearly setting this up to Luffy's going to start flipping things back. What has been turned dark, he is going to have the ability to turn light. Now, I really hope that it's not going to be Luffy and Bonnie in their Nika forms flipping everybody into Nikas. I don't think Oda's going that way. I think it would cheapen Luffy's form, the Gear 5th form, if that's the way he went. I was happy with Bonnie because it made sense with her fruit and with her, what she had grown up believing and her hope that was being lost, and I thought it worked one time. I don't want to see that over and over again. However, it is certainly possible that all it's going to be is that Luffy is going to free them from this, and so it'll just turn them back to normal. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Bonnie and Luffy on either side. You know, Oda could find another way to do it, because just because that's how Imu's powers work doesn't mean that that's how the reverse would happen. I mean, that's how it works for a game, but that's not necessarily how it has to be done in the manga. Either way, it does seem like Oda is very specifically setting up, don't worry, the pieces can be flipped back. Anyway, it certainly isn't that these people are, the people that are being turned are still themselves and being forced to do these evil things against their will, and they're tortured by it. It's horrible. No, they're reveling in it. What was his name? Thorman. When Thorman was turned, he didn't want to be turned, and then as soon as he was, he goes, ah, what an incredible feeling. So inwardly, they are changing. We also do have an emphasis in this particular chapter, first of all, of more nightmares being created. The nightmares are still active, they're still a threat. It feels very much like a secondary threat with everything else going on, but they are still actively being made. And I do really like the illustration of the children hearing that the giants are being turned into demons, and so now they're dreaming of it, and you can see the nightmare hole and the demon reaching out and crawling forward. I mean, it was good imagery. But we still have that going on, but there's also an emphasis on the mothers rising up. First, we have Ripley, who's going after Colin, saying, don't worry, I'm going to save you. But then we also saw the, Bent's mom, Bent and Ilva. Oh, yeah, Bent and Ilva's moms, which it looks like Bent's mom is the one that was turned into a nightmare, or that she was, a nightmare form was made of her by her child. But you see the parents. Yeah, it looks like there's men in that crowd too. You see the parents rising up and saying, we're coming after our children, which of course Gabon has been doing as well, but there seems to be an emphasis on the parents fighting for their kids. And I think I think Oda's gonna continue to use that. We also got Killingham's, I guess, human side, or this is the hybrid side. I don't like it as much. I know that's going to be unpopular. I bet everybody loves it because it's fierce and it's intimidating, and now he looks just as intimidating as the others do. But I loved Killingham's vibe. I loved that he just seemed so chill, you know, like, oh, we're kidnapping children. They might die. Shucks. Shall we have some dinner? Oh, I'm out of salt. Go to sleep. I'll pluck that salt. Great, you can wake up now. I'm fine with it. Just no matter what's going on, he seems so nonfussed. He seems so chill. Yeah, I'm happy to kill some kids. We'll kidnap them, we'll kill them, we'll do whatever. I don't mind. But I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to leave. Like, he just seemed so powerful, but also, it's fine. Like, he wasn't charging into the fight to be the first one to land a strike. You know what I mean? Like, Summers was like, ha ha ha. And Killingham was like, let's do it. Fun. Why not? I'm getting whiplash from his character now. Why was he so chill as Killingham? Well, he's always been Killingham. I realize now that I've been calling him Killingham when he's in the design that I like and not in the design that's been just introduced, but he's always Killingham. Apologies. Why does he seem so chill when he's in his mythical zone form, but when he's in his hybrid form, he's maniacal? Why? Don't take this as a complaint. It's not a complaint. I'm just expressing whiplash for his character. I'm sure he's wonderful. I'm sure he's a great child napper. Also, my goodness, there's so much that happened in this chapter. Also, Usopp is the one that's screaming out into the crowd, screaming out into the chaos, saying, what are you doing? Stop! Stop it! You know, Vivi did this, Kobe did this. Here's Usopp doing it, screaming out into the chaos, calling Master Dory, Master Brogy, what are you doing to your homeland? Wake up, guys. Why do you look like that? Where is your sense of pride? I love that this was Usopp doing it this time, because Usopp is the one that's the most internally in tune with Elbaf, as it were, the Elbaf that we were introduced to. And there's something especially tragic about us being introduced to the ways of Elbaf through Dorian Broggie, and our Straw Hats fell in love with Elbaf through Dorian Broggie, and we, the readers, believed that we would eventually make our way to Elbaf in Little Garden through them. And now they're the first ones to be turned. They're the first ones that were against their will, turned evil, and now they are the destruction of the nation that they love. They are the destruction of the people and the culture and the history that they take so much pride in. So Usopp, when he arrived, was willing to accept, okay, they've changed. He was a lot more adaptive than I thought he would be. But to see the ones that embody the Elbaf that you know and you love and you believe in and that you're connected to see them then become the destruction of all that's left. There's something really, really significant about that. There's something very weighty about that. And Usopp feels that weight, and through him, we get to see that weight as well, experience that weight alongside of him. So I'm curious to see if Oda's then going to take this and have Usopp then stand up and fight alongside of those that are now coming forth from the underworld, or if this is just going to be, I don't know. You never know what Oda's going to do, how much he's going to build on something like this, but there's certainly potential, so we'll wait and see. This line here feels significant to me. They will eventually crumble under the weight of their own personal demons. That does seem to be a theme that Oda is teasing and potentially going to be building on with Elbaf. The fact that their nightmares, their own nightmares, have been made tangible and are now attacking, and they're having to fight it. Their own culture and history, they themselves have had to burn down, and now their own selves have been turned against themselves and are wreaking havoc. So it seems that this is a theme that Oda has been building up to and now is overtly stating they will eventually crumble under the weight of their own personal demons. And then, of course, all the imagery that we have here is actually literally demons are the ones doing it. And we, of course, have the imagery of the five elders and Emu, and all of that is very to the forefront. And of course, Luffy's role is the freedom bringer. And bringing light, bringing joy has certainly been a thing that he has done. So I'm curious how Oda will continue to build on this and how he will tie it into the main themes of the conclusion of the story as well. Anyway, Emu, through Gunko, says, "The heart of Elbaf. This country would have been subjugated years ago if not for Harold's miserable failure." Okay, what? So I don't know, because Harold, I'm so back and forth about him. Was he actually bad and Loki was saving the country, the kingdom, by killing him? Was he not bad and he was trying to save Elbaf? And did Loki actually kill him? I'm still so unsure about what exactly happened here, which is very exciting. I'm really enjoying the way Oda is kind of teasing it and making it like it could go either way. My current thought is that Harold changed the culture of Elbaf to a peaceable one, specifically because he was rejecting the giants' culture of warfare that they've had historically for so long. He was rejecting it and ripping his own horns off because somehow he learned of this prophecy or this fated thing where the giants, whoever they joined, that would be the winner of the war. And possibly he had been approached, he had been propositioned, work with us, we want you on our side. And the idea of the giants being used in this way, being subjugated for such evil, was so horrifying to him that he utterly rejected their culture, turned them into a pacifist nation, so to avoid being used as war tools, especially if somehow he found out that they could be subjugated against their will in this way. Maybe he wanted to make them look as unappealing as possible for this game. Now, how he would have gotten that information, that's something to be revealed if Oda does go that way. It's certainly possible that none of that is going to be where Oda goes. But this is kind of where I'm leaning at this point, that it was an act of mercy, trying to make them not a warrior nation anymore. The problem is that the giants live so long. And we're told right there at the beginning of the story that, or right at the beginning of the Elbaf arc, we're told that the older generation did not support this move, which King Harold, you know, probably could have anticipated but couldn't have done anything about. They did not support this move. They allowed it, they still lived under it, but they kept their warrior pride, they kept their warrior heart, and they're still, all of the older generation is ready to rush into action, rush into the fight. So it's interesting because up to this point, Oda has been, he's dealt with the topic of the older generation and the younger generation, and specifically the older generation stepping aside to let the new era come. That's been a repeated theme from the beginning of the story, and even in Elbaf was still banging that drum. So it's interesting now to have a story where the younger generation, they certainly will have their own merit and value, and I do think that Oda is going to show how a non-warrior culture has so much merit too. And maybe he'll bring a marriage to the two beliefs between the older and the younger generation, But it's just interesting to me that up to this point, the older generation being strong and being shepherding and being mentoring and loving and raising up a new generation, and then stepping aside and letting the new generation come, letting the new era come, has been a repeated theme. And here, what we're seeing more is the younger generation, we're seeing a culture shifting, and the older generation not pleased with it, and the younger generation is happy with it. But now that the younger generation is being exploited, the older generation rushes into their aid. And this, of course, is being painted very positively, as it should. So what does that look like for the rest of the story? Will the old and the young be fighting together? Will they be learning from one another? Will they find some sort of middle ground at the end of Elbaf? I don't know. We'll have to see. Chopper's getting some great scenes in these most recent chapters as Gaban is falling and Chopper is shouting, "I didn't think this through!" But, you know, he did. He ran after Gaban. He's going to be the doctor. He's going to be an asset through all this. And through this, we see Luffy and Loki eating and everyone standing around. We have this spread of them all just recovering and talking. And as they fall, Luffy immediately goes, "Oh, that's Chopper." How did I know that was Chopper? How did you know that was Chopper? Is this the voice of all things? Is this just some evolved observation that he somehow unlocked for no reason? Is being in Elbaf changing? Like, is that what's making him more in tune? Is it being around a certain someone that's causing him to just subconsciously access these higher levels? I wouldn't know. Then we see the call come in from Shaggy, talking to Loki, basically saying goodbye. Don't tell me, are you in danger? Or don't tell me, are you in danger again somehow? I'm fine, don't worry. I just wanted to say thank you for everything. And Loki's shouting, "Hey, wait, what is Shaggy?" Okay, so we already saw that Loki really cares about Shaggy and is very defensive of him. And here Shaggy is saying, like, you meant a lot to me. Having these calls has been really influential for me. And now I need to say goodbye because it's probably going to be a while before we can talk again. So the assumption would be Shaggy's in danger. My natural first thought is you're all. The old super bearded guy with the sword through his head. That's the first identifier I should have tried for, because that the snail phone seems to indicate big giant beard, but also Ural is about to be killed. At least that's the plan and probably what's going to happen. And he knows it, so he's saying goodbye. Now, I don't think that the way he sounds on the snail phone is the way he sounds in real life, but there's also a tenderness, or when we see him elsewhere, but there's also a tenderness between these two characters, so I could see how his tone would shift when he's speaking with Loki. And with everything going on with Harold, it's certainly possible that these two are the only two that really actually know what happened that day, and they've bonded over that, and there has been a bond formed, a relationship formed because of that. But it could also be a character that we've just never met, and we're eventually going to get the reveal. I really don't know. But there's definitely a tenderness that we see. I mean, a harsh tenderness, but a tenderness that we see of Loki every time he has this conversation with this person. There's clearly a lot of care here going in both directions. So I'm just excited to see who it is and what their bond looks like. Maybe through a flashback, maybe we'll get to see Shaggy and him together before Shaggy dies. I don't know. I also love, as we wrap up, real quick mention, I also love when Luffy realizes who has fallen from the sky, that everybody thinks he's so awesome, everybody loves him, good job Chopper. Chopper's all bashful right after we get the live action news and we see Chopper in the live action there. We see Chopper here doing the same thing. Oh gosh, you can't butter me up like that, you jerk. Anyway, so he tells Chopper good job, and then he realizes, oh, it's this guy? This one? He's one of the wings of the pirates? I assume he's the third strongest in the crew? Scopper, even he's just taken the biggest fall. He's just been sliced through. He's got arrows stuck through his body. He's dying, and he's just like, second strongest. He's like, it's so funny. It's very much the wings of your pirate captain, right? Like, just like Zoro and Sanji, it's that bickering, that poking at each other, the competitiveness. I love it. So Chopper starts explaining things and they don't need to hear it. They don't need to hear it. They feel the strength of what's happening as we see more of these streaks of power from Emu coming through. They see, or rather sense, that hockey. In fact, Gaban even says, oh, no, that hockey. So it's something he's familiar with. And then they all stand up and say, oh, we're fighting now. Okay, I don't need to hear the rest of the story. Let's go. Everyone back on the lift. We're returning to the Sun World. Elbaf's in danger. Luffy says, save your breath, Chopper. I get the idea. And Loki goes, oh, whose preposterous hockey is that? Looks like you're gonna need me after all. So they are all going up to fight side by side. It's gonna be chaos. I can't wait. This is a chapter that felt more like a let's get all the pieces together, let's finish showing what destruction is going to be wrought for Elbaf and for the Giants at this moment, and then let's get our players out of the underworld so that they can play the game, so that they can participate in the fight. But even with it feeling like a chapter that's just putting things into motion, there was so much to unpack. There's so much happening in these Elbaf chapters, even the chapters that aren't the big explosive chapters. There's so much to talk about. I think it's a break week. I'm pretty sure it's a break week. I don't know if it's a break week, but whether it is or not, cannot wait for the next chapter. Please do chat with me more in the comments. I would love to hear what you think, stuff that I talked about, didn't talk about, stuff you agree, disagree. Please continue chatting with me there. I would love to continue the conversation, read your comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.